platters and courses and second helpings. So much work always goes into Thanksgiving. And then it's over in an instant. But I loved every bit of it. From planning it together to preparing the meal together. I'm sure it was more stressful than I remember, but I loved Mary's and Janelle's company as we cooked together. Always. I always loved that. I love holidays. I loved honoring everyone's family history and traditions. I loved thinking about what everyone brought to the family. On December 6th, because of my German ancestry, we celebrated St. Nicholas Day by putting candy in the kids' shoes. But then they would have too much candy. So we made and decorated gingerbread houses. Eventually, we used graham crackers because the gingerbread never held together. One year, Garrison decided to make an elaborate graham cracker train, and he couldn't get it to hold together with the frosting. Finally, I pulled out a glue gun. "But then you can't eat it," he said, so worried about missing out. So cute. "It's okay," I told him. "We'll set some graham crackers aside for eating." He made a massive train, and as the other kids looked at their own leaning cottages, they wondered at and admired Garrison's project. "Whoa, Garrison's is the best!" From then on, everyone used the hot glue gun, and I let them eat all the crackers they wanted afterward. For a while, Cody didn't want to do Christmas. His best friend had decided to do only the Jewish holidays because he felt that was most pleasing to God. He figured these were the holidays Jesus had. "Absolutely," I said. "Whatever you want to do, I'll do it. Of course I'll do Shabbat. I'll do Hanukkah. I would braid the challah bread, and my kids love that. But more than anything, it was about having everyone together once a week. I hosted Shabbat often. We stopped doing Easter too. Cody and Janelle researched it and determined it was more pagan than Christian. That broke my heart. My moms, with their witch hats and cauldron of orange juice on the Halloween mornings of my childhood, didn't approve. My other mom, Aunt Susan, worried that the kids would be sad and said we should replace it with something equally fun. Cody went with Passover, which somehow wasn't the same. I continued to live in the small ranch house, where I cooked for, cleaned up after, disciplined, and homeschooled our 10 kids. They were a rowdy bunch, but as they got older, they started to look after each other when they weren't wrestling or yelling. I did everything I could to keep them focused on their lessons. At one point, we built an Incan empire in the backyard, complete with canals and homes. Then we created this intricate communication system with quipu, or strings with knots tied in different numbers and distances to relay messages. The kids would use a quipu to show how much corn or wheat they had, and then they would run it over to another tribe. I did my best, but I didn't have much money, and I had 10 kids under the age of 13. So while I have fond memories of teaching them, I knew they weren't getting the education they needed. We played games to teach them math and Latin roots, but McKelty struggled with reading, and I could see that Garrison and Peyton were falling behind too. It wasn't always ideal. Because of my work situation, I worked at the museum, spent one evening a week at Walmart, and had a paper route, but it helped me find my place in the family. I felt like, as a woman, we started to figure out how we could live together-ish, but also help each other. If you think about it, most of us have friends we love to spend small amounts of time with, but who would drive us crazy if they lived in the spare bedroom. We started to settle into something more realistic. Another woman started to show interest in Cody, but this time, none of us were interested. She and Cody worked in the same town, so she would get a ride to our house and then have Cody take her to work. She flirted with him constantly, and Cody can be ridiculously flirty too. But her flirting with a married guy was not super cool. She was extra. Her mom and dad started hinting at the possibilities, but nobody talked about a potential courtship. Her dad had 2 wives. They should have known better. And she didn't work on a relationship with married Janelle and me. She called constantly, and Cody spent a lot of time on the phone with her. I got sick of it. I thought she disrespected our marriages to Cody. I remember I was tired all the time because I was pregnant, so I took a nap. Look, if she calls again, you need to let me intervene, I told Mary and Janelle. This is ridiculous. She called. Janelle knocked on my door. Where's the phone? I asked. We gave it to Cody, she said. Seriously? Cody was in the garage working with his brothers. I opened the door and could see he was on the phone, so I roared her name. Picture Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction. Well, or maybe Ursula in The Little Mermaid. I love Ursula. Are you talking to her right now? I said to Cody. Yeah, he said. Give me the phone, I said, as I grabbed it. You have made a wrong decision here, I said to the woman. You should have been brown-nosing me. In a plural family, you have to build a relationship with the wives, too. And you chose to ignore us, and that is your problem. And you will never get further than this. It is over. You will get your own rides to work. You will not call him anymore. You will not get through me. And then I hung up the phone. When I looked up, Cody's brothers were all standing with their mouths open because they had never seen that side of me. I'm the fun, happy-go-lucky, everything's always peachy wife. But don't cross me. That's not going to work out well for you. I've talked with the woman since, and she said, yeah, I behaved badly. And I said, yeah, I may have too. She's happily married now. We focused on raising our kids together as siblings. In our culture, aunt is synonymous with other mom. My other mom was Aunt Susan, and as a kid, I didn't understand why until I realized it was a protection against the outside world. Even before we went public, we decided we didn't want to do that. We also didn't like Mother Mary or Mother Christine. It felt old-fashioned. Mother Goose, Mother Teresa, Old Mother Hubbard. Ew. We had the kids call us by our first names, so I was Mom to my kids, and Christine to Mary's and Janelle's kids. Then we raised them as siblings. Gwen learned to speak before Gabe, and because she called me Mom, he started to, too. I stopped it immediately, of course, but it was so cute. I loved taking care of all those kids. I also liked having a set community of women I trusted and could count on to help raise my kids. We had the same morals and values, and I knew the kids' other moms could help sculpt them into good people, especially because the three moms had different personalities. There was always someone each kid could identify with. During their teenage years, we knew that would be especially important. I had lived through it with my own moms. Our kids would also learn how to be around different kinds of people with all the kids and all the moms, which I thought would help them in the future. We created our own village to raise our children. I'd also seen beautiful relationships among sister wives. When my grandpa died, my grandmas became close. They'd always been best friends, but that friendship grew after he died. I wanted that sisterhood. Grandpa was brilliant at plural marriage. Each of his wives believed she was his favorite. I asked some of them. They each said they knew the other wives also believed they were Grandpa's favorite. He made them all feel special and like he loved them as individuals. That's why it was so devastating when the law found out about them, and they were separated for years. When they found each other again, they built a tight bond. For a while, it felt like Mary, Janelle, and I might be headed that way, especially if we kept working on ourselves. Even the kissing got better in Wyoming. As a young woman, I was all about practicing. What do you want to do for your birthday? Cody would ask. Can we go for a drive and make out? I'd ask. Come on, he'd say. Let's do something different. He was never into the idea, but he was attentive in other ways. When I was pregnant with Isabel in 2003, the diamond fell out of my wedding ring. We were on a drive, and I had my hand out the window. When I pulled it back in, the diamond was gone. Have you ever seen a ring without its stone? It gapes like a black hole. I was devastated. That's okay, Cody said. Why don't we go and pick out a new ring together? I think you need a story for this one. We drove to Billings, Montana, where he